Hello, everybody. I hope you're well. This is Leo Thompson, and I'm going to introduce myself and what I do. First of all, I'm really sorry that I can't join you today. I am in Bucharest hosting a conference at the same time, but I would have loved to have been there with you. So I'm going to introduce what I do and my services through the talking head that you can see up here, but primarily some visuals and some slides. And as you can see, I specialize in teaching children how to learn as opposed to what to learn. And I think that is an extremely underserved area in schools around the world. IB has a very advanced philosophy, obviously incorporating the approaches to learning and the IB learner profile, but not often do we really effectively teach that in education. And how often have teachers themselves been trained in this area? So, what I like to do is apply the learning sciences and bring that right down to stories, metaphors, infographics, worked examples, and practical things that we can apply inside and outside the classroom. I've also added that little caveat there about the age of screens and AI, because I know that is a real challenge for our younger generation and even for ourselves. And there's a lot of research there about the impact of that and potential threats. So, focusing on HI, human intelligence and human development, ironically becomes even more important. And you can see on the right-hand side, at least on my screen, about the building of belief and potentiality and possibilities in children as they become more confident with their learning skills and more equipped for the future. So if my PowerPoint behaves, the second slide here is just a little bit about me. I have a background in teaching. I always come to school as a teacher in disguise, very proud of that, but also in leadership and in school consultancy. I worked for the Council of International Schools for 5 years in their accreditation and development team. But also in schools, I was a teacher, IB coordinator, and also IB principal and IB head. And yeah, really focus really about how we can improve education for children. I set up a foundation called Explorer about 2 years ago, and that was really to help develop the learning inclusively for children and well-being, because I think those two areas should never be separated. So I'm a very proud IB educator, but also I'm fascinated and one could almost say addicted to the learning sciences. I love to read and look at different systems, different research around the areas of learning. It's a transdisciplinary field and always looking at the sort of latest publications and newest books. I'm currently reading about embodied learning by Guy Claxton and Emily Peel, and trying to simplify that and bring that down into ways that young people, educators can understand and practically use it. And I think that's really important. There's all sorts of insights from the learning sciences that connect very much to what we do in classrooms, but also the behaviors of children and the learning of children. We look into things like potential, memory, cognitive load, attention management, and of course, higher order thinking. So this very much connects to the world of the IB and the approaches to learning, which I'll explain in a minute. And it's very important that this advanced field of neuroplasticity research has proven beyond all reasonable doubt that intelligence is not fixed from birth and that your genes are really just a starter pack, but they don't determine your destiny. And that's due to the impact of the environment, practice, mindset, and just constant development through focus. So it's very important that young people don't develop that fixed mindset and belief, but a growth mindset based on actual research. So it's really a sort of biological extension of Carol Dweck's research. And one of the ways I try and do that is simplify complex ideas into infographics and models that children can look at and think about and become more self-aware, more metacognitive about what they can control, a bit like driving their own learning car. It's very easy for children to feel that they are controlled in the learning system and that things are processed, and they're part of this sort of conveyor belt of learning. And of course, that is not the IB's philosophy at all. The IB believes in agency and developing those independent learning skills. So all of the areas in what I call the neuroleaf design there are really a distillation from the sciences of learning of areas that children can practice and work on and that we can help them with so they can take more control of how they learn. So I like to break those down into my workshops. I thought it might be helpful for you just to map that into the approaches to learning, but also obvious connections with the learner profile. I think this is probably a little bit small. I'll try and zoom in a little bit, but you can see that there's heavy emphasis on thinking skills, research skills, on the foundations of curiosity, of course, and self-management skills, but lots of links and connections with key concepts and certainly also with the learner profile. So that's central to the work that I do. Often we don't talk enough about the approaches to teaching as well and how those are connected. So in my workshops with teachers, I really love to break those areas down and show how these approaches to learning correspond with the approaches to teaching. An IB teacher is expected to teach a certain way and distill certain philosophy and apply certain principles of learning. And to take that to a real practical level, in my workshops with students, we talk about how they can become the best version of themselves, what they can work on, their habits, their systems, their mindset. And I get them to really interact and create like a learning record to think about and ponder and take away. So you don't get an instant fade out and learning loss. So we love to make these workshops really, really interactive. Um, and I've worked across the world in different countries, in different places, in different cultures, many IB schools, trying to help children, again, take that ownership of their learning. I love working with educators as well. As I said, I'm a teacher in disguise. This is my tribe, and we love talking about the challenges, the problems, the issues, but also how teachers are all co-creators and facilitators of learning. And I also work with parents as well, which is very good marketing for schools, but it's also bringing them onto the same page and destroying a lot of those myths that surrounded them when they grew up as well. So it's really a sort of community approach. It's areas like sleep are absolutely vital for learning. And I say to students that sleep is the save button for our memory system. I explain how that works, and that helps them develop better study schedules and study programs. I have very tailored workshops around specific problems and issues and challenges for students that they might be facing, like time management, prioritization, uh, procrastination, which can affect all of us, of course, focus, distraction, attention control, referring back to screens, um, possibly also to AI, which can be our best friend and worst enemy when it comes to learning and thinking. So I like to factor that in because I think those are really significant problems that we face. After the workshops, I love to get feedback from as many students, teachers, parents as possible to help me improve, but also find out what works well. So constantly iterating and improving. And this feedback really struck me as this child thought they'd really learned something new about themselves, but also how they could react differently and change some of their behaviors to become a better version of themselves as a learner. So overall, I would like to say it would be a pleasure to come and work with you in your school. I have a discount for ACES schools because I'm based in Vienna in Central Europe. It's much easier for me to come to you, and also because I would love to work with you and your school. So please do feel that you can reach out anytime, make connection with me through Explorer, and also with some follow-up details. I'll share a menu of my workshops and would be happy to have a conversation with you. I wish you a very successful wrap up to your school year. I know it's very busy times for educators, and I look forward to meeting you in due course. And thanks again for your time.